Hello, hello, hello. We are back with Chapter 3, Applying Rational Numbers, and today we're talking about Lesson 6, Multiplying Fractions and Mixed Numbers. To multiply fractions and mixed numbers, there's a variety of steps. So the first step is to write any mixed numbers as improper fractions. So what that means, a mixed number is something like 2 and 1/4. That is a mixed number. So this right here is a mixed number. And that is the same thing as an improper fraction. So what we need to do is write it as an improper fraction, and we talked about that last time. So let's go over how to change from a mixed number to an improper fraction. How you do that is you take the bottom number in the denominator and you multiply it by this big number. So you're going to go 4 times 2, which is 8. And then you add it to the number on top. So 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, and that's what number you put on top. And then you keep the same number that is in the denominator, which would be 4. So 2 and 1/4 is the same thing as 9/4. And this is an improper fraction because the number on top is bigger than the number on the bottom. So whenever you're multiplying fractions and mixed numbers, the first step is to write any mixed number as an improper fraction. After you do that, the next step is well, let's look at this problem. Okay, so step 1, write any mixed numbers as improper fractions. Do we have any mixed numbers there? No, we don't. So we're good. So let's go on to step 2. Step 2 says cross-cancel out any common factors. Okay. So we're going to look here, and we're going to look across. We're going to look at 3 and 9. And when we're looking at those, we're looking and saying, hey, is there a number that goes into 3 which also goes into 9? And I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite this problem. And the answer is yes. 3 goes into 3, and it also goes into 9. 3 goes into both of these numbers, so we're going to cancel out the factor of 3. So 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 9 3 times. And yeah, that's it. Then we look across this way at, we look at the 4, and we look at the 8. And we say, hey, is there a number that goes into both 4 and 8? Well, we know that they're both even, so we know automatically 2 goes into both of them. But is there a bigger number? And yes, the answer is yes. 4 goes into both 4 and it goes into 8. So let's go and look at it. Okay, how many times does 4 go into 4? 4 goes in there one time. How many times does 4 go into 8? 4 goes into 8 2 times. So we now have canceled out all of the common factors. Step 3 states that what you do is then you multiply the numerators. Remember, those are the numbers on top. So at this point, we have a 1 and a 1. So this is a 1 is in the numerator here, and a 1 is in the numerator there. So 1 times 1 is 1. And then the next step is to multiply the denominators. So we have a 3 and we have a 2. So we're going to go 3 times 2, which is 6. And the last step is to write your answer, which is always the last step whenever you're dealing with fractions, is to write your answer in simplest form or in lowest terms. And so when we're looking at this, is there a number that goes into both 1 and 6? Well, every time there's a 1 in either the numerator or the denominator, you know automatically that it is in simplest form. So that's our answer right there, 1/6. So whenever I'm multiplying fractions, what I try to do is always look at, I'm going to use my fingers, look to cross-cancel, and then multiply across. Cross-cancel, multiply across. Cross-cancel, multiply across. Cross-cancel, multiply across. So if you can remember that, cross-cancel, multiply across, you can multiply fractions. Okay, let's move on to the next example here. 6 and 1/4 times a negative 1 and 4/5. So what I see here automatically is that we have 2 mixed numbers. So we need to go ahead and change these mixed numbers into improper fractions. How we do that is we go 4 times 6 is 24, and then we add the 1, which is 25. So 25 over 4, and that is going to be multiplied by a negative, there's a negative there, 5 times 1 is 5 plus 4 is 9, 9 over 5. So here we go. We are going to look to cross cancel and then multiply across. Look to cross cancel, then multiply across. Look to cross cancel, then multiply across. Perfect. So let's look to cross cancel. Are there any common factors between 25 and 5? And the answer is yes. 5 goes into both 25 and 5. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So we did that one. Then we want to look across here. Is there anything that goes into 4 and 9? And the answer is no. So we have cross canceled. So the next thing is to multiply across. So that's what we're going to do. 5 times a negative 9. So we have a positive times a negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. 5 times 9 is 45. All over 4 times 1. So we multiply the numerators. Then we multiply the denominators. 4 times 1, which is 4. So there we go. That is our answer. We look for simplest form. And yeah, this is even, that's odd. So 2 doesn't go into those and 4 doesn't go into those. So this is in simplest form. Let's go ahead and write it as an improper fraction. So that, this is an improper fraction. Let's write it as a mixed number. So how many times does 4 go into 45? Well, I know that 4 goes into 40 10 times, and it would go in one more time to make it 44, which would make 11. 4 times 11 is 44. There would be 1 left over. And we cannot forget that it's a negative 11 and a fourth. So there we go. That's how you do it. So let's go down here. Let's practice this some more with these 4 problems. So we're going to multiply. Write each answer in simplest form. Perfect. Okay, so here we go. 6 times 1/9. So this 6, we're going to change it to 6 over 1. And then we don't have any mixed numbers, so we just go with what we have here. We're going to look to cross cancel. Cross cancel first. Okay, so is there any common factors between 1 and 1? That is in simplest form right there, so there's nothing we can do. Let's look at 6 and 9. Is there any common factors between 6 and 9? The answer is yes. 3 goes into 6, and 3 also goes into 9. 3 goes into 6 2 times, 3 goes into 9 3 times. So after we have gotten rid of we've cross-canceled, now we multiply across. So we're going to multiply the numerators. 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 times 3 is 3. And that is in simplest form, so we have 2/3. Perfect. Let's move on to the next one, number 2. So we have negative 4/5 times 5/7. So the first thing we do is look to cross-cancel. Okay, so I'm looking at 4 and 7. Are there any common factors? And the answer is no. What about 5 and 5? Of course, 5 goes into 5 and it also goes into 5. So, boom, there we go. We're going to cancel out of 5. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 5 one time. Perfect. Now we're just going to multiply across. So I'm going to look at this as negative 4 times 1, which is negative 4, and 1 times 7, which is 7. So, and is this in simplest form? Yes, there are no common factors between 4 and 7. So that is the answer right there. Perfect. Okay, let's go on to problem number 3. All right, so we have a mixed number. So that means we need to change it to an improper fraction. So that's real, we can do that, no problem. 3 times 3 is 9, so we multiply this and then add it here. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10, so it's going to be 10 over 3 times 9, and we're going to turn this into 9 over 1, because 9 over 1 is the same thing as 9. And then we look to cross-cancel, 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 cross-cancel. So we look at 10 and 1. There's no common factors there, so we're good. Now we look at 9 and 3. Are there any common factors? And yes, there are. The common factor between 9 and 3 would be 3. 3 goes into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. Okay, now that we've cross-canceled, we multiply across. Here we go. So 10 times 3 is 30. Multiply the numerators, and then multiply the denominators. 1 times 1, which is 1. And anytime you have 30 over 1 or any number over 1, It's just the number on top. So 30 over 1 is the same thing as 30. So that is the answer in simplest form. All right, perfect. On to number 4. Here we go. We have 3/10 times 2 and 1/2. I see a mixed number. And mixed numbers, we always have to change those to improper fractions. So at this point, I'm just going to rewrite the 3/10. And then we have to change this. So we're going to multiply and then add. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we have 5 over 2. And then, you guessed it, we cross-cancel first. Okay, so we're looking at the 2 and the 3. Is there any common factors? And no. What about 5 and 10? Yes, it has a common factor of 5. 5 goes into 5, and 5 also goes into 10. So 5 goes into 5 one time, and 5 goes into 10 2 times. So now that we've cross-canceled, we multiply across. So we have 3 times 1, which is 3, and 2 times 2, which is 4. So the answer is 3/4. And is that in simplest form? Do they have any common factors? And they don't. So this is in simplest form. That is our answer. Perfecto! All right, now it is your turn, ladies and gentlemen. Turn to the next page, and we have all of these wonderful, marvelous problems. 5, 6, 7, and 8, 9, 10. I want you to go ahead and try those. So where's our friend the pause dragon? Where are you? Oh, here he is. Reminding you to go ahead and pause your device, work out these problems, then press play, and we'll talk about them when you get back. All right, see you in a bit. See you in a bit. We are back, ready to talk about number 5. We have 2/7 times 7/8. And remember, the first thing we have to do is cross-cancel. So, is there a common factor between 7 and 7? And the answer is yes. 7 goes into 7, and 7 also goes into 7. 7 goes into 7 one time, and 7 goes into 7 one time. Let's look at this way. 2 and 8, do they have any common factors? The answer is yes. They're both even, which means 2 goes into both of them. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. So now that we have cross-canceled, what we need to do is multiply across. So here we go. We're going to multiply across. 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 4 is 4. And that's the answer. That's in simplest form. So boom, there you go. We did it. We're awesome. Okay. If you got that right, good job. That wasn't very good drum roll. I used to play the drums. I can do better. I wasn't very good. Okay, we're moving on. Number 6, -5/9 times 3/4. Here we go. First thing is to cross-cancel. So let's look at the 5 and the 4. Can we cross-cancel? And the answer is no. What about 3 and 9? Yes, 3 and 9 have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 one time. 3 goes into 9 3 times. So now that we have cross-canceled, what we need to do is multiply across, and that's what we're going to do. So -5 times 1 is -5, and 3 times 4 is 12. So our answer is 5/12. And is that in lowest terms? Simplest form? Yes, it is. And remember, whenever you're multiplying a negative times a positive, your answer is always going to be negative. Okay, there we go. On to number 7. So problem 7. Oh, problem number 7. Okay, here we go. 9/10 times a -2/3. So the first thing we're going to do is look to cross-cancel. Okay, we're doing it. Does 2 and 10 have any common factors? The answer is, of course it does. It has a factor of 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 10 5 times. What about 3 and 9? Are there any common factors there? And the answer is yes. 3 goes into 3, and 3 goes into 9. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 3 one time. Now that we have cross-canceled, guess what we do? Guess it, guess it, guess it. Yes, we multiply across, and that's what we're going to do. 3 times, okay, so look at this. This is a positive times a negative. A positive times a negative, your answer is always going to be negative, right? Cool. 3 times 1 is 3, and 5 times 1 is 5. And yeah, that's it. In simplest form, yeah, no common factors. Boom, that's our answer. -3/5. I hope you got it right. If you did, great job. Okay, on to problem number 8. Problem number 8. 2 and 5/8 times 2 and 3rds times 2/3. And there is a mixed number. So the first thing we must do is change that into an improper fraction. So we need to multiply and then add. So we have 8 times 2, which is 16, plus 5 is 21 divided by 8 times 2/3. So after we've changed this mixed number into a wonderful, magnificent improper fraction, now it is time to cross cancel. So let's do it. Looking at 21 and 3, do they have any common factors? And yes, they do. The common factor that they both share is 3. 3 goes into 3 one time, and 3 goes into 21 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. Perfect. And then we look here. Are there any common factors between 2 and 8? And yes, there are. 2. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. Now that we have cross-canceled, it is time to multiply across. Let's do it. So 7 times 1 is 7. 4 times 1 is 4. So there you go. We have our answer. It is 7/4. That is in simplest form. There is nothing to reduce. However, we can change this. This is an improper fraction, so we can change it to a mixed number. How many times does 4 go into 7? Yes, it goes in one time, and how many are left over? There would be 3 left over, and you keep the same number in the denominator. So it's the same as 1 3/4. So I want you to write both answers. I don't want you to write the word both, but I want you to have this answer and this answer on your paper, the improper fraction and the mixed number. So if you did that, great job. You get a smiley face. That's for you. Okay, on to the next one. We have 1/2 times 4 and 1/4. So do you see it? Do you see it? Yes, it is a mixed number that must be changed to an improper fraction, so let's do it. We have 1/2 times, we have to multiply and then add. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17. 16, 17, all over. You keep the same number on the bottom, 4. So we are going to look to cross-cancel. Okay, so any common factors between 4 and 1? Can't do anything there. What about 2 and 17? 2, the only thing that can go in 2 is 2, and 17 is odd, so it can't go. 2 cannot go into 17, so no, there's really nothing we can do. We cannot cross-cancel, so the next thing is to multiply across, and that's what we're going to do. Starting with the numerator, 1 times 17 is 17, and 2 times 4 is 8. And we look for simplest form, and that is it. That is simplest form. There's nothing that you can reduce. There's no common factors. But it is an improper fraction, which means that we can write it as a mixed number. So how many times does 8 go into 17? I would say it would go in 2 times, because 8 times 2 is 16, which means there would be 1 left over, and you keep the 8 on the bottom. So that's the same thing as 2 and 1/8. So if you got that right and you have both of the answers, we need both of them, this one and this one. Great job. That's awesome. Okay, here we go. On to the next one, number 10. Number 10. We have -2/3 times 1 3/4. And yes, there's another mixed number, which means we have to change it into an improper fraction. So I'm just going to rewrite the -2/3. And we're going to multiply and then add. So 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7, all over 4. And then the next thing we do is, you guessed it, cross cancel. Okay, so 3 and 7. Are there any common factors between 3 and 7? And the answer is no. What about 2 and 4? Yes, you are right. There is a common factor of 2. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 4 2 times. So now we multiply across. So we have a negative number times a positive, which means our answer is going to be negative. 1 times 7 is 7, and 3 times 2 is 6. So there you go. We have our answer right there, a -7, 6. That's in simplest form, but it's an improper fraction, so we can also write it as a mixed number. So how many times does 6 go into 7? It goes in one time, and it's negative. We can't forget that. And how many are left over? Well, there would be 1 left over, and you keep the same number on the bottom. So -7, 6 is the same thing as -1 and 1, 6. And I would love to see both answers on your note sheets. That would be marvelous. Okay, on to the next 3 problems here. I want you to go ahead and pause, work them out, and then press play, and we'll come back and talk about them in a little bit. Perfect. You are all done. Let's go ahead and see how you did. So we start here with 5 1/5 times -1 2/3. So they're mixed numbers. We have to change them to improper fractions. So we're going to go multiply and then add. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26/5. And we're going to multiply by this negative number, and we're going to go 3 times 1, which is 3, plus 2, which is 5 over 3. Boom, there we go. Now we look to cross cancel. Is there any common factors between 3 and 26? Well, the only thing that can go into 3 is 3. And 26, the cheat rule to figure out if 26 is divisible by 3 is you take 2 and you add it to 6. So 2 plus 6 is 8. And is 8 divisible by 3? No, it is not. That means 26 isn't divisible by 3. So there's no common factors here. How about here with 5 and 5? And the answer is yes. 5 goes into 5 one time, and 5 also goes into 5 one time. So the common factor there is 5. Now we just multiply across. So we're going to go 20. We have a positive number times a negative. And so a positive times a negative is always a negative. Multiply across, we have 26 times 1, which is 26. And then we have 1 times 3, which is 3. Yeah, so that's it. If we wanted to go ahead and put, this is improper fraction, so we can change it into a mixed number. It would be negative, and we'd have to just see how many times 3 goes into 26. I would say 3 times 8 is 24, so that means that 3 goes into 26 8 times. So 3 times 8 is 24, and there would be 2 left over. So 2, and then we keep the 3 there. -8 2/3 would be the answer. So if you got that, great job. Okay, on to the next one, number 12. We have 4 1/2 times 1 1/9. So we got some mixed numbers. We need to change them. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 9 over 2 times 1 times 9 is 9, plus 1 is 10. 10 over 9. Then we look to cross cancel. Is there any common factors between 2 and 10? The answer is yes, 2. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 10 5 times. Are there any common factors between 9 and 9? And the answer is yes again. 9 goes into 9, and 9 also goes into 9. So there's a common factor of 9. 9 goes into 9 one time. 9 goes into 9 one time. Now that we have cross-canceled, it is time to multiply across. So 1 times 5 is 5. And 1 times 1 is 1. And 5 over 1 is just the same thing as 5. So the answer is 5. Now we are ready for the last problem, number 13. So here we go, -2 3/4 times -1 1/3. So the first thing we have to do is change all these mixed numbers into improper fractions. So we're going to go 4 times 2, which is 8, plus 3. So 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11, so it's going to be negative 11 over 4. And we're going to multiply that by a -3 times 1, which is 3, plus 1, which is 4 over 3. So we change the mixed numbers into improper fractions. Now it's time to cross cancel. So we look here, 11 and 3, anything we can cancel out? And the answer is no, there's no common factors. What about 4 and 4? Yes, 4 goes into 4 one time, and 4 also goes into 4 one time. So perfect. Now we have cross-canceled. It is time to multiply across. We have a negative times a negative, and whenever you are multiplying two negatives together, they turn into a positive. So our answer is going to be positive. Now we just multiply across. 11 times 1 is 11. 11 times 1 is 11. 1 times 3 is 3. So there's our answer, and it's in simplest form. 11 over 3. That is an improper fraction, so we can write it as a mixed number. How many times does 3 go into 11? 3 goes into 11 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9, and then there would be 2 left over. So it would be 2, and then you bring the 3 over 2/3. 3 and 2/3 would be the answer as a mixed number. So if you got that right, good job. All right, we will see you next time. 2 thumbs up. You did great. All right, bye.